Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Atari 50 Namco Legendary Pack. So they did give this to me for purpose of review a little early, and this is the latest DLC for Atari 50th the anniversary celebration, which came out a few years back. I gave the base game a really positive review when it launched. It's one of my favorites in the, retro compilation space, and there's a lot out there. And this pack builds on that in a solid way, in my opinion. But I'll keep things straightforward here, what it includes, why I like it, and if it's worth picking up. So let's check it out. First, a quick recap on Atari 50 for anyone who hasn't played it. It's a collection put together by Digital Eclipse, and in my opinion, they're the best at this kind of thing. They don't just throw a bunch of old games together and call it a day. Instead, they turn it into an interactive museum. You get timelines, interviews, scans of original documents, ads, and photos that tell the story behind the games and the company. It's educational without feeling like, homework or anything like that. It's more like browsing, a well-curated exhibit. It's a lot of fun, in my opinion. The base game covers Atari's history from the early days through the consoles, arcades, and even some prototypes. I really loved how it made me appreciate the context of these classics, really gave you a lot of behind the scenes information, things I never knew about. So now the Namco Legendary Pack, it expands on that by focusing on Namco's titles that made their way to Atari hardware. So Namco, of course, is the company behind icons like Pac-Man and Galaga. Galaga is one of my favorites. And there's a lot of shared history there because Atari licensed and ported some of these games back in the day. So this DLC, it adds a new interactive timeline specifically about that crossover. It explores how these Namco games landed on Atari systems, the challenges of porting them, and the impact they had. Now, if you're into gaming history, this feels like a natural extension of the original Atari story. It ties in how Japanese developers influenced the American market and vice versa. So the pack includes multiple versions of 5 key Namco games: Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Dig Dug, and Xevious. These aren't just arcade originals. You only get a couple arcade versions of the games, which were ones that Atari had their hands into. But you get Atari-specific ports for all these games, like the Atari 2600, 5200 versions, plus some home computer adaptations as well. Now, playing them side by side is interesting because you could see the evolution and the limitations of the hardware at the time. Like, as an example, Atari 2600 Pac-Man is infamous for not quite capturing the arcade feel, with its flickering ghosts and simplified maze. But it's still fun to revisit, especially if you grew up with it, like me, the Pac-Man I had back then. But the 5200 version is closer to the arcade, with better graphics and sound. Same goes for Galaga and Galaxian. The Atari ports capture that fast-paced shooting action, even if they're not pixel perfect. Dig Dug on Atari feels right at home, with the digging mechanics translating well. And Xevious, which is a bit more complex with its ground and air targets, shows off what the Atari 7800 could handle. Now, what I appreciate is how Digital Eclipse emulates these accurately. The controls are responsive, and you do get a lot of things that you could tweak, like scan lines, aspect ratios. There's a lot of little things you can mess around with. Even dip switch settings with the couple arcade versions of games you have here. Now, if you're playing on modern hardware, it all runs smoothly without any glitches, I noticed. I played this on PC, but it is available on, all the other consoles that are out there. So, I mean, it's really cool to hop between the versions of all these games that they included here and just compare them directly. I thought that was a lot of fun. That alone makes it a nice addition for anyone who wants to experience these games, in my opinion, without getting the old school hardware, looking for the cartridges, that kind of thing. But here's where the pack really shines, in my opinion. Just like the base game, it's all the extras, which we already kind of touched on. It's not content to just let you play the games. Digital Eclipse packs in video interviews with people who were involved in the original development and ports. You hear from programmers, designers, even some executives about the decisions behind bringing Namco's hits to Atari. There are stories about licensing deals, the technical hurdles. All this stuff about Pac-Man was really fun and interesting, in my opinion, and even how these games helped keep Atari relevant during tough times. Plus, there's archival materials, scans of design
My whole family
documents,
hopped in the station
marketing
wagon to rent
materials,
the
photos from
radio,
the
and we
era,
would play.
and even
We'd
some
play everything
unreleased
and hand
prototypes or
off the remotes, like
concept
because
art.
my
It's
mom,
all
my dad, and my
organized in
friend,
that interactive
and
timeline
we'd play
format
this
where you can
game
scroll through events,
multiplayer
watch the
quite often,
clips, and read
and we had our
blurbs at
own
your
kind of
own
tournament
pace.
kind of going on in the
For me,
family
this
and everything like
elevates the
that.
whole thing beyond
But I was
typical compilation. Sure, you can find emulated versions of these games elsewhere, like Namco's own collections, right? But here, it's about the Atari angle, the history of how these titles fit into Atari's ecosystem. It adds depth to the overall Atari 50 experience, making it feel more comprehensive. If you think of the base game as a museum of on Atari's own stuff, this pack is like adding a wing dedicated to their partnerships with Namco. It's informative and gives you a better understanding of the 80s gaming scene. So that said, it's not a massive expansion. The focus is narrow, just these 5 games and their, related history. If you're expecting dozens of new titles, this isn't it. It's more about quality and context over quantity. It's got a very low price for the DLC, which is, fair for what you get, especially if you're already invested in the base game. It all integrates seamlessly, so everything's just all in one place. Overall, for me, I give this, DLC a big thumbs up. It's a positive addition that stays true to what made Atari 50 great, in my opinion. I really loved the base game and, the previous add-ons to it. So if you enjoyed the original and want more history-focused content, I say definitely grab it. It reinforces why Digital Eclipse is top tier at
so it
retro
ended up being
preservations.
went from a very
They make
competitive,
learning
but
about
it was
games
still
as
give and take to
enjoyable
it,
as
but it was
playing them.
kind of like
Now, if
cooperative
you're new
and
to Atari
wanting
50, I'd
every
recommend
person to
starting
do
with the
well.
base game first,
With
then
the
adding this
psychological reason
and
for
the
that
other
was
DLC packs. My only nitpick, I would say, before we go, is the same nitpick that I've always had, and that is with the interactive timeline, is that I wish you could just play all the videos lined up together without any interruption, just like a whole big documentary, so you could just see everything back to back. That's my only tiny nitpick. I wish you could do that with just like a simple click of the button, but I don't see that that's been added. That's the only minor thing. Overall, like I said, big thumbs up. Highly recommend you checking this out. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? Appreciate it. Catch you on the next one. Bye.